The Hare Krishnas were young, full of energy and fuelled with a vision of a new type of spiritual life.
A lot of people joined because they were seeking truth, they were soul-searching and they were seeking something deeper. Hare Krishna philosophy, Hare Krishna food, Hare Krishna clothing. There was no world outside Hare Krishna, that's all we knew.
We were meant to be chosen children, actually, because to be born into a Hare Krishna situation was considered to be a blessing.
So who were the Hare Krishnas and where are they now?
You don't have to walk around with a bald head and tilak and robe to be a Hare Krishna.
People say, oh, okay, so not all Hare Krishnas are hippies running around the hills. And it's no, they're not. They're pilots and they're lawyers and they're doctors and they're teachers and they're nurses.
For the past 30 years, this property in northern New South Wales has been home to the biggest Hare Krishna farm community in Australia. They came here to create a world away from mainstream society, devoted to Krishna consciousness. The Hare Krishna movement in the West was born in the 1960s at the height of the youth revolution. A 69-year-old Indian Swami dressed in orange robes arrived in New York City. His name was Srila Prabhupada, and he had come to spread Krishna consciousness to the world. Mukunda Goswami, or Michael Grant as he was known back then, was one of his first disciples.
It was a very dingy room. He was lecturing.
Actual identity as part and parcel of the Supreme Lord, Krishna.
It was a very incongruous scene because he looked very distinguished, and the people who were listening were kind of like hippie-like.
New devotees flocked to hear this learned Swami giving lessons about an ancient Indian religion. Within a few months, Prabhupada had registered this fledgling movement and called it ISKCON, the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. Within 2 years, the movement had established temples in San Francisco and Los Angeles. Next stop was London, where Mukunda and the devotees actively sought out celebrities.
From that point on, we started, trying to meet a lot of important sort of people. The Beatles were the celebrity of the world at the time. It did have a good effect, and it taught us that it's not what you know, it's who you know.
George Harrison, already interested in Eastern spirituality, in fact sought them out.
We didn't invite him, he just turned up one day. I was one of the Hare Krishnas that he really liked. The fact that we were both musicians had a lot to do with it. He didn't like everybody, but I was kind of a friend of his, and he trusted me, and we had some good conversations.
With a little help from their new friends, the movement gained fame worldwide. Its founder, Prabhupada, visited Australia, as temples were set up in Sydney and Melbourne. Hare Krishna teachings are rooted in Indian Hindu culture and date back more than 5,000 years. They embrace a single god, Krishna. They are strict vegetarians and believe that chanting the Hare Krishna mantra is a way of attaining a rapturous connection with God.
To be an initiate, it's quite strict. You have to follow what we call the regulated principles. There's no meat eating, no gambling, no intoxication, and no illicit sex. And you have to chant 16 rounds of the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra every day, which is a 2-hour, pretty much for everybody, a 2-hour commitment. And it also means rising early and pretty much trying to dedicate all of your activities to service to God.
In 1977, the movement suffered a devastating blow. Their beloved leader and founder of the Hare Krishna movement, Srila Prabhupada, died.
Prabhupada's dying was one of those unthinkable things, because he was the guru, he was the CEO of the institution, and then one day he was gone.
Internationally, the movement was struggling to cope with life after Prabhupada. A number of disciples had been appointed as gurus to fill the void. They were to preach to different parts of the world. But the new system was to implode quite spectacularly over the next 10 years, as guru by guru fell from grace.
There were people that got drunk on power because they were young, and as has been mentioned, they're just human beings, and you know, they have the frailties. You know, we have to make a vow that there's going to be no intoxication, no meat eating, no illicit sex. It's a very difficult thing to subscribe to for a lifetime. To be above those frailties requires a very special commitment, a very extraordinary commitment.
In 1986, as far as I remember, there was a big festival for Vishnupad, who was the guru of most people in the community. And then shortly after that, it was discovered that he wasn't living the life of a celibate as he'd vowed to be, and then perhaps he wasn't, you know, a directly empowered representative of God if he wasn't able to maintain that standard. And there was a crisis of faith for many of the followers after that was revealed. It was tumultuous for everyone. It was hugely tumultuous because, you know, people imagined their spiritual path to be very much tied up with this person, and then he was gone.
The 90s proved to be the most difficult time for the Hare Krishna movement worldwide. Reports of physical, emotional and sexual abuse emerged in Hare Krishna boarding schools in India and the United States.
Yeah, there was a lot of really heavy, awful stuff that went on, but not in our Australian school. Our Australian school was, I would say, kept to a really high standard in that sense that we were very fortunate.
Today, the movement is steadily growing again. There are restaurants in all the major cities in Australia and temples serving weekly feasts to the needy. Books are still being sold, and they're back on streets again, entertaining the crowd.
I cannot imagine being without it. I can't. It would be empty. For me, Krishna's God. He just is. You ask me what God's like. God's blue and he plays a bamboo flute.